Undertale is a 2015 indie RPG developed by Toby Fox, wherein the player character falls into an underground civilization of monsters, and you can either befriend everyone in an attempt to escape and set monster kind free, or kill everyone who stands in your way. And it is a masterpiece. Undertale was developed by Toby Fox across 32 months up until September 2015 when it released. Before then, he was mostly known for making Earthbound ROM hacks and composing the music for the web series Homestuck.
This motherfucker don't miss.
Eventually, he decided that he wanted to make a game after reading a Wikipedia article about array data structures and wanted to know how it could be incorporated into an RPG. He made a small demo for the game, and around a month later, he launched a Kickstarter on June 25th, 2013. And originally, the Kickstarter campaign's goal was $5,000 US. However, within a month, about $51,124 US were raised, and the Kickstarter ended. He then began developing Undertale, wanting to make something different given how most RPGs are boring to play, to him at least, as he wanted to make a game that utilized the medium as a storytelling device. He decided to work on the game almost completely independently, aside from some help with the game's art with the help of Temmie Chang, who provided most of the sprites and concept art. And on September 15, 2015, Undertale was released and received enormous amounts of praise from general audiences and game critics alike. Eventually, it was ported to PlayStation and Xbox consoles, as well as the Nintendo Switch. The only changes from the PC version and the console versions were that some moments in the game were altered, and the Nintendo Switch version had a completely new mini-boss. Now that we have the development stuff out of the way, let's move on to the game itself. Before I do so, this review will contain a lot of spoilers for Undertale, so if you have not played Undertale yet, I'd highly recommend you do that first. This section of the video will have really only light spoilers for the game, so if you want no spoilers whatsoever, play the game now, come back later, it is worth your time. Alright, let's dive right in. I think a good natural starting point would be this game's art direction. I think Undertale graphically looks really great in the 16-bit style for an indie game. The rooms in Undertale all look great and are all mostly memorable in some way or another due to the art. There are some rooms that look absolutely drop-dead gorgeous. Look at the Hall of Judgment, or the part of Hotland that overlooks the core, or hell, even the surface. Some of these areas look like pure art, and it's no surprise that these areas are so memorable. Hell, I could even put some of these up on my wall if I want. The use of color also makes everything pop, making each major area in the game look distinct in their own ways. Snowden looks cold and inviting. Waterfall looks dark and wet. Hotland looks hot and treacherous. The core looks futuristic and finale-esque. But where I believe the art style really shines is the character sprites. The sprite work for the individual characters looks really good and pretty simple. Believe it or not, I believe simplicity adds to a character design over complexity. Toby Fox even said it himself, quote, "There is a psychological thread that says audiences become more attached to characters drawn simply rather than in detail." And I know he was talking mostly about the humor and visual gags, but it still rings true. With a simple design, you could look at a character and immediately you think to yourself, oh yeah, I get it. Which I think plays in Undertale's favor. Look at Sans, he has slippers on to show his laziness, but he still stands up straight and makes the conscious decision to put his hands behind his back, something people wouldn't normally do, showing that something might not be all too right. Meanwhile, look at Asgore. He is wearing a regal cloak, no immediate display of armor, showing that he is kind and approachable, but still has armor underneath the cloak, showing that he isn't one to mess around when it gets to that point. Now, this might be just me reading too much into these designs, but it is also probably all intentional. Plus, props to Temmie Chang for making almost every enemy design memorable, making their most core features front and center, and always providing unique designs with very few repeats. The enemy that is probably the most forgettable is Moldbig, but I am pretty sure it is because of how it disguises itself as a mold small for the beginning of the fight. So yeah, this game has good art direction, but that's not the only good thing about it that could be considered art. I don't know how to do this transition. It's the music. We're gonna talk about the music next. Oh boy, here comes Krimsin being the millionth person on the internet to praise Undertale's OST. But there's a very good reason I am the millionth person to do so, because this soundtrack is one of my favorites in any game I've ever played. Don't believe me? I put them all in a tier list. And here it is. Look how good it looks. The music in Undertale always fits wherever it is used, and is also very well composed. I will actually go over several of my favorite tracks. Here's the time frame if you want to just skip that, because this is going to be a bit of a rant. The track Alphys feels weird and awkward at first, but then eventually becomes welcoming, like her introduction. Death Report is stressful yet engaging, like the scene in the game, adding a sense of hurry, go, go, go to the moment, making it pretty memorable in my opinion. Your Best Nightmare perfectly suits the final boss of the neutral run, with the sheer amount of chaos happening on screen and the chaotic nature of the song, making it suit so well. It's Showtime is my favorite shitpost song in this track because I just love throwing it into places. Spear of Justice is basically, how do I say this? Nya! But better and more epic, which is a great fit for Undyne in the neutral and pacifist runs. Snowy is the worst ambience track for a general area in the game, but it still brings on a wintry vibe that I love so damn much. Ruins is a great ambience track for the first area in the game, and like It's Showtime, I love throwing it into places it barely belongs in. But all in all, it's still a great track. Asgore is, well, Home encapsulates the feeling of warmth and coziness of Toriel's character, better than Fallen Down in my personal opinion. Core goes hard for no fucking reason, and I love it for that very reason, bringing a feel that I used to describe the core in-game earlier in this video. Finale-esque. Hopes and Dreams is probably the perfect final theme for the Pacifist run, using leitmotifs from all other major characters in the game in this absolutely amazing boss theme. But that is all I will say on the boss for now. His theme is one of two themes in this game that will make me cry no matter what, but this one has made me cry less, so it's gonna be lower. But still pretty damn impactful. Snowdin Town brings the wintry feel of Snowy and makes it more lively, and I think that it is really good. It feels like I just stumbled across Christmas Town, which you kinda do, but whatever. Finale is one of the most satisfying themes in the game, and if you play the game, you definitely understand what I mean. And that is why this theme, to me, is so good, because of the satisfying nature of it. Waterfall is an amazing ambience track with the sheer volume of the track, making Waterfall one of my favorite areas in the game. Maybe my second favorite area overall. Battle Against a True Hero perfectly fits the fight it was used for, making this the definitive boss track for this character. Undertale is one of this game's most emotional tracks and fits the moment in the story expertly. And honestly, for being the title track, it sure damn well deserves it. Here We Are is the perfect theme for this game's best area, and one of the best levels in any game I've ever played, in my personal opinion at least. Feeling haunting yet familiar? You know, it is an odd feeling, but it is super effective. It's Raining Somewhere Else is the perfect mood setter for the Dinner with Sans, reflective yet ominous, the perfect way to describe this scene. It is honestly just also a beautifully composed track. My wrestle is, how do I say this? But better and perfected, in my opinion, at least. Respite is the one track in this game that will make me cry, no matter what. And I am talking about the in-game version, not the OST version. That isn't as good. If the final boss of the Pacifist Run doesn't make me cry, the ending of the Pacifist Run will. And it's mostly because of this track, as the beautiful use of the piano is probably the song's biggest strength, and it's what propels this song to being one of my personal favorites in the entire OST. Spider Dance is... it's so good. It is so good. You know what? It's so good, I might have to name my theoretical son after it. Dummy is probably the track in the game I have the most fun listening to. It is Ghost Fight, but infinitely better, and is easily one of my favorite boss themes in this game. It's actually my second favorite, behind the number 2 spot. The same can be said for Death by Glamour, but it is marginally better, and I love the disco elements in the song. It is so electrifying and it just sounds so good, man. I don't know how else to describe it. This is just an amazing boss theme. And, of course, to no one's surprise, Another Medium is this game's best track. Its use is perfect. The composition itself is perfect. I cannot get tired of listening to it, and honestly, it was the saving grace for me when I edited the Lost Isolith section of my previous video. This game's soundtrack is one of my favorites, up there with Ocarina of Time, Hollow Knight, Celeste, Persona 5, Chrono Trigger, and Bloodborne soundtracks. Now, let us go to the actual reason why people play video games over every other medium: the gameplay. Alrighty, the gameplay. According to Senior Fox, he wanted grinding to be optional and have no fetch quests, like a fucking Chad. And he also wanted the game to be easy and enjoyable, which that second part is very important, and as you guessed, he succeeded. The gameplay, while not in combat, is not very complicated, but there are some things that I do want to mention, mostly the puzzles. I really like a lot of Undertale's puzzles, and as you will come to learn, this game loves its puzzles. Hell, Papyrus is the skeleton when it comes to them. In the beginning of the game, the puzzles are relatively simple, with only a few unique ones, but as the game progresses, the puzzles become a bit more three-dimensional and a bit more challenging, but they get much better. Hotland is literally Puzzle City, and I love all the puzzles in that area, but that is really all the gameplay while not in combat, so let's talk about the combat. The gameplay while fighting, on the surface, looks like a typical RPG with standard mechanics like fighting, accessing your items, fleeing, and acting? Damn, I didn't know the player was a theater kid. This option allows you to talk to the monsters in an attempt to placate them instead of fighting them, and in turn, sparing them. You have to figure out what the best thing to do in order to be able to spare them is, or you could fight, like I said. And there are some pretty good weapons and armor in this game, either boosting the amount of times you can attack in the case of weapons, and also boosting damage, or granting additional effects, like the cloudy glasses and torn notebook increasing iframes, the stained apron healing 1 HP every other turn, and the burnt pan increasing HP from consumables. However, after you take your turn, you are thrown into a little mini-game where you have to dodge the enemy's attacks. The defensive segments are based off of the Mario and Luigi series, and bullet hell shooters like the Toho Project series. I personally have never played either series, so I cannot say anything about them. However, I do plan on playing the Mario and Luigi series at some point. Maybe Bowser's Inside Story, I heard that one was pretty good. Anyways, he wanted a battle system as engaging as Super Mario RPG. Now that is a game I did play, at least the remake. And Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga. I haven't played that one. Light spoilers here. There are some mix-ups in the gameplay throughout the game, mostly in changing the color of your soul or some other effects. In Papyrus's fight, your soul turns blue, which turns the fight into a platforming fight. In the Mad Dummies fight, you can send attacks right back to him. In all of Undyne's fights, your soul turns green, which allows you to block her spears. In Metaton's fights, your soul turns yellow, turning the game into a top-down shooter. If there is a light blue attack, you will need to stay still, or if there is a orange attack, you need to move. If an attack is green, you need to go into it so you can meet the requirements to spare certain enemies. In Muffet's fight, your soul turns purple, restricting your normal free-range movement to just 3 horizontal planes. And finally, in the Switch version, in the Mad Mew Mew fight, your soul is split, so you have to move the joysticks to not get hit by projectiles. All of these gameplay mix-ups are quite fun in the moment, and honestly make the game more fun to play as a whole. But what is all this fun gameplay without some fun enemies to fight? Or spare. That's right, baby, we're gonna be talking about them enemies. I'm gonna be real, Undertale I think is one of the few games where I memorized every single enemy. The only other games I can think of where I can say that is Minecraft, The Forest, and Subnautica. There are definitely more, but I can't really think of them off the top of my head right now. Now, the design and gameplay aspects come together here to make one of the most memorable casts of enemies I have seen in the game. Almost all of the designs are distinct, and what's even better is that all of the enemies have different ways to spare them. You will never see a duplicated idea in an enemy, and if you do, it is incredibly rare. The only enemies I believe are basically the same in that regard are Vegetoid and Washua, but that is about it. Actually, let's go over some of the most notable enemies in the game, shall we? The dummy is a soy little bitch who will either die or cry if you do anything to it, like a drama queen. Frogget is the first enemy encountered in the game and is also on Metaton's shirt. Vegetoid is a carrot with a face that you can spare if you eat the green vegetable. This carrot is crazy, feeding me one of his kind. Looks like Mike Wazowski, and that is epic. Wazowski! Icecap and Snowdrake are the most picky enemies in the game in order to try to spare them. Like, good lord, you two. Lesser Dog is a good boyo. All of the petting. Jerry is a mother. Jerry, that stupid mother.
I should have fucking killed you when I had the chance.
Gift Trot has a pretty nice design once you take off all of the decor that was most likely set up by Jerry. I like Aaron because he can flex himself out of the battle. Shiren follows the pretty mermaid that actually has piano keys for teeth trope that I love to see in fiction. What? But in actuality, she is pretty cool. Temmies are an affront to mankind, and I will not take that back. Vulcans are notable for me because I didn't know until this playthrough that there were 2 ways to spare them. Tsundere airplane is... well, you don't forget a tsundere airplane, don't ya? Pyrope is cool in my opinion because if you turn up the heat, the vision gets warped, like heat waves. I think that's pretty cool. Magic makes no sense, and I like that. Night Knight looks really cool for such an EP girl. Astigmatism is what I will have if I keep having people lick my eye. Don't ask why people lick my eye. Why did I write that? And that is the most notable enemies in Undertale, to me at least, excluding bosses and mini-bosses. And with that, all the light spoiler sections of this video are now complete. And with that, we must move on to the story, writing, and characters. The real meat and potatoes of this Thanksgiving feast of a game. Alright, now I already had the spoiler warning, but seriously, if you have not played Undertale yet, go do so. If everything I mentioned thus far is at all interesting to you, just go play the game. It is 100% worth it. I mean it. Past this point, there will be major story spoilers, major character spoilers, and spoilers for all 3 endings. Okay? We good? Okay, let's continue. Okay, so to make things short, I absolutely love this game's writing. The story for Undertale is quite simple, but I don't think that's really a bad thing. Not at all, in fact. I strongly believe that a simple story can allow for other aspects of any game, movie, show, etc., to be enhanced, and that complex stories have a higher probability of falling apart completely, along with the writing and all that. To use this movie as an example, why do I think Moana is so good despite having such a simple story? A lot of it is because of the really charming characters, great music, good emotional beats, amazing animations, good jokes, etc. All of the aspects of Moana have been amplified because the creators really focused in on those aspects despite the simple story. Now that we have an example of how a simple story could work, let's give an example of how a complex story could completely fail. I really hate using this series as a bad example. I really do, but I just can't help it. The Five Nights at Freddy's lore is just absolutely incomprehensible if you are not fully in the games. I will probably elaborate on this more in another video, but the Five Nights at Freddy's series has some of the most convoluted and poorly written lore I've ever seen. I still like it, and I can somewhat follow it, but I cannot imagine describing it to someone who has never played any of the games, and for them to completely understand it. I would know. I tried explaining it to one of my friends, and he just didn't understand it. And that was for the first 7 games. I couldn't even imagine how confused he would have been if I tried explaining the lore of everything post-Custom Night. It is a really bad sign when I barely have any clue when Sister Location takes place on the timeline. As someone who has been with the series since early 2015 and know a lot about the lore, the fact that we still have no clue when Sister Location takes place after 8 years is embarrassing. No hate to Scott Cawthon, but I just feel like things should have been planned out better. That was a weird off-topic rant about Five Nights at Freddy's. Let's go back to talking about the good story now. I fully believe that Undertale is in the same boat as Moana, but it's just better. You can short describe Undertale's story in maybe a paragraph. The protagonist falls into underground full of monsters that is separated by magical barrier. Down there, they could either make friends with all monsters and eventually free them, or kill them and eventually erase the world with a demon. All while an evil flower that is connected to the king and queen tries to kill you or something like that. That is basically the entire story of the game summed up in like 2 sentences if you're going on like a neutral run or something. Now because of this, Toby was able to laser in on this game's excellent writing. Lately I've been using a method to see if a movie or a game or whatever has amazing writing, and it is if the piece of media makes me feel really emotional, but I can still have a lot of fun with it. Whiplash has a tightly written, thrilling, and emotional story, and Fletcher is just hilarious to watch. Majora's Mask has one of the darkest and most powerful stories in any Nintendo game, while having a fun cast of kooky side characters and hilarious moments. And Undertale is the exact same way for me. This game's honestly incredibly hilarious. Some of the jokes here continue to get a laugh out of me, even on my 6th playthrough of the game. Most major characters have a very unique style of humor, and almost all of them land for me. Sans's humor is a lot more punny and lame uncle-like. Papyrus's humor is a lot more innocent and childlike. Undyne's humor is very dynamic and over the top. And Mettaton's humor is completely f***ing absurd. Burger Pants' humor is very relatable and depressing. Bratty and Caddy's humor derives from them being basically just identical besties like Katie and Sadie from Total Drama. Napstablook's humor is very self-deprecating, you get it. The visual comedy is also really great with some characters. Characters like Burger Pants or Heat's Flamesman have really funny expressions that just make the humor land even more and just iconic to me. Just a quick aside, I have remembered Heat's Flamesman's name, and it always pops into my head when I think of this game's side characters, so if I was able to remember this minor character's name that well from just a single joke, then the joke really lands. But this game is also really emotional and powerful at times. The entire pacifist ending is just a huge avalanche of feels, which I'll talk more about later. But there are other moments, like after the Toriel fight when she says goodbye to you. It's a very sweet moment, but it is also pretty sad that you might never be able to see her again. It's a very nice moment, honestly. And that moment in the genocide run when Flowey recounts being reincarnated as a flower, and he says this? It's like, shit, man. This game also has some really good themes. I like it when a game has a good theme. In the Pacifist run, the theme is very clearly about friendship and compassion, and how compassion and mercy will ultimately fix most problems. Maybe, I don't know, I was writing this at like 3 a.m. And I think that's a really good theme for the mercy runs. However, on the no mercy runs, I believe the theme is the consequences of violence, which is no better stated than that. Overall, I love this game's writing, themes, and I really like its story. But now I believe it is about time we talk about the very heart and soul of Undertale, the characters. Undertale's biggest strength, in my personal opinion, is its vast array of characters. Most characters in this game are very memorable and well written, even the side peeps. So let's talk about all of the side characters and why I love them. I love so many of these NPCs that are not a part of the plot at all. Like the rabbit girl and her younger brother that she has on a child leash. Anyways, or the politics bear because he is relatable, and that's how politics are, I guess. I like the red demon for being positive about his disposition, unlike the scarf mouse. The library lizard being aware of the typo of the library, librarby, is kind of funny. Grillby is super cool, no notes. Big Mouth is named after a terrible show, but they look better than any character in said show, so congrats. Uglyfish is so desperate, man. Like, bro, just stop putting your number on a fishing line. The Snowden shopkeeper really seems like the most normal character in this game, which is kinda a surprise, but a welcome one. Kinda like that one girl from Comey Can't Communicate. I forget her name, but I like her. Onion Son is the best character in this game, and I will die on that hill! The small bird that can carry you over a disproportionately small gap is epic. Temmies are an affront to mankind, like I said earlier in this video, and yep, I will continue to live by that. Heat's Flamesman is just as funny as I said in the last section of this video. I don't really have any other notes here, that's all I wrote in the script. Scared Donut Guy is literally me seeing Girl Scouts and seeing them selling cookies. I am scared of children, and Girl Scout cookies can be really expensive sometimes, so I completely understand. Bratty and Caddy are your typical teenage girls, but they're actually funny. Listen, as someone who is still in high school and is surrounded by teenage girls all the time, I can confirm not a lot of them are funny. A lot of them are just kinda assholes. The Sad Dragon talks about a horde, which whoa, they got dragons right. Hallelujah. Snowdrake's father is, we'll kinda talk about him later. And then there is Burger Pants. This guy is legitimately one of the funniest characters in this game to me. I am not even kidding. He is literally just like me, for real. But anyways, let's talk about the boss characters and the mini-boss characters. And yes, I'm also talking about the bosses in this section of the video. Deal with it. First up is Napstablook. I honestly really love Napstablook, and it is not because he is relatable. A lot of the other characters in this game are very energetic, telling jokes and throwing weapons around, and Napstablook here is just one of the few characters who straight up is not like that. He's a dumb ghost boy with low self-esteem, always believes he is inconveniencing others, and loves music, while also sitting in his room all day, making stuff for the internet and then posting it and waiting for people to see their hard work and judge it. Okay, maybe he is just a little bit relatable. The dogs are dogs, and I like them. Moving on. Alright, let's talk about the Mad Dummy. The Mad Dummy is a boss you can find in Undertale in the garbage dump, and will chastise you for whatever you do to the dummy at the beginning of the game, except on a genocide run. As you can tell, he is usually incredibly upset, and this is perfectly illustrated in his boss fight. I mean, he fires his own dummy companions, uses robot replacements, fires them, and then throws a goddamn knife at you. I also really like this boss's unique gimmick where you have to have the dummy attacks hit him instead of attacking or sparing him, making for one of the most unique fights in the game mechanically. I like the Mad Dummy. Smile. Also, if you're playing the Switch version, the Mad Dummy will try to possess the body of a Mew Mew doll, which leads to the Mad Mew Mew fight, which has the most unique boss gimmick in this game, no doubt. The Royal Guards are gay as hell and they deserve each other. Great couple. Moving on. Alright, Muffet I think is this game's non-route specific best mini-boss. Muffet is a sweet-looking yet very greedy monster who is quite malicious and morbid. She seems to be the leader of the spiders and is holding a bake sale in order to raise funds in order to free the spiders from the ruins. I don't have much else to talk about her with her character, so let's just talk about her boss fight now. Muffet's fight begins with her turning your soul purple, which restricts you to 3 horizontal planes of movement, as she attacks you with various spider-related bake sale items, and a giant muffin spider pet at 3 different instances. I also kinda like how you could pay her to make her attacks not as strong, but I don't really do it since it will eat up your money fast, even if you struggle to get a discount. The fight is still a very good fight, and it's honestly really fun. And all in all, even if Spider Mom is not as good of a mom as Goat Mom, I like her boss fight better, okay? And to conclude this game's side characters, let's talk about the Amalgamates. The Amalgamates are a group of monsters that have been revived by Alphys by using determination, prior to the events of Undertale. But because monster bodies cannot handle determination too well, they all melted together into these horrifying creatures and were locked in the True Lab. They seem to be partially bestial in their fights, but they still have a conscience, but as collectives rather than individuals. However, through fighting them, you can help them remember their previous lives, and by the end of the true pacifist ending, despite their horrific disposition, they do get happy endings when reunited with their families. I absolutely love the Amalgamates, as I believe they are the most humanizing take on mutant creatures I've ever seen. And I'm talking about mutated abominations, not the mutants from the X-Men, because they would most likely take that title. I will actually talk about each amalgamate specifically, because I want to. The memory heads have no specific connection to any other monsters in the game, but appear to look like Gygus from Earthbound, and maybe a resemblance to a human brain can be made. They have the toughest fight of the group and look the most horrific, but they do also appear to be the most social of them all, and the interaction seems to be framed as an invite to calling each other over the phone. Next is the Reaper Bird, which seems to appear to be a collective of an astigmatism, a final frogget, and a whimsalot. In contrast with the memory heads, the Reaper Bird is completely incomprehensible, but seems to be the most passive of the amalgamates, with their attacks seeming more so incidental rather than intentionally malicious. Then there is Lemon Bread, who is a combination of a Moldbig, a Chiron's body, and an Aaron, and seems to be the most irritable of the group, yet also the most aware of its situation, and they more so seem to be scared and lonely. Also, the Chiron is the sister of the Chiron mini-boss that we talked about earlier, and also has the most delicious sounding name. And then there is Endogeny, which is comprised of multiple dogs. That's all I gotta say. And finally is the Snowdrake's mother. She seems to retain the most of her memories and individuality, and longs to see her family, and is the most harmless of all the amalgamates. If there's any one of these guys that will make you feel for them, it's her. And I love how they are dealt with only by pacifism, and all of it is not for nothing, because, as I mentioned, they do get happy endings with their families again. Not being framed as abominations, but as victims. God, I fucking love this game. Oh, by the way, I only talked about the side characters and the mini-bosses right now. We are not even talking about the main cast, and we have the most humanizing take on mutant creatures possibly ever. Yeah, when I said this game's writing is top-notch, I wasn't lying. But now, I believe we have to talk about all of the main characters in Undertale. This will probably take a little bit. I feel like it's fitting enough to at least start with the first character that you will meet on this journey. Or second. Toriel is the second major character in Undertale, but she's really only a big presence early on in the game, but is still really important regardless. She is easily the game's most nurturing and caring character, which is why she is known in the community as Goat Mom, which is a very apt name, saving you from Flowey and attempting to teach the player to avoid the dangers of the underground, and even wanting to adopt you immediately. She is very sincere and expressive when it comes to her love, but she won't shy away from using tough love when necessary. She does come off as overbearing, mostly due to her losing both of her children in one night. Did I say that this section was full of spoilers? She will just shower you with love, even wanting to sign you up for a curriculum immediately due to her wanting to be a teacher, which at the end of the pacifist run, we see she was actually able to do. But she does also prevent you from leaving the ruins because her ex-husband Asgore will kill you in her eyes. Speaking of, let's talk about her boss fight real quick. It isn't too challenging compared to some of the game's other bosses, but she is definitely more difficult than any previous fight. But not really at all, since you can't even lose this fight, as her attacks will begin to miss you if your health gets too low. Also, depending on how the player goes about this fight, she could have the most gut-punching moments in this game. Unlike her ex-husband Asgore, who always intends to stop you, Toriel will be protective of you, so you could start the game off killing the game's most maternal figure. On a pacifist run, you could spare her, getting a bittersweet goodbye, or kill her on a neutral run, which she will also surprisingly accept. However, if you kill her while she is sparing you, or going for a genocide run, she will invoke the hatred you truly deserve from her. While she isn't around for long, she is, in my opinion, one of this game's best characters. Now let's talk about the smiley trash bag himself. Sans is another one of this game's most major characters, and could be argued to be the deuteragonist of the neutral and pacifist routes, and is the final boss of the genocide route. And he is more lazy, omnipresent, downbeat, and more prone to bad jokes than the other one. He is shown to be lazy, often sleeping on the job, and is somewhat mischievous with illogical, juvenile, and slightly inconvenient pranks, like selling fried snow, using whoopee cushions, putting hot dogs on your head, sharing an unscrewed ketchup bottle, drenching your burger in ketchup, or putting eye paint on a telescope. He also loves making prank YouTubers. That's the kind of pranks you should be pulling off. Contemplates doing stand-up comedy. In the pacifist run, he is shown as the comic relief of Undertale, but there are moments where he is serious, like the dinner scene with him. I want to talk about this moment real quick, as I just completely adore it. After making your way through Hotland, you arrive at a hotel called MTT, which also doubles as an entrance to the core. And outside, Sans invites you to a dinner with him before you go to the core. And during it, he explains why he is following you around, because he made a promise to Toriel a while back, to protect any humans who exit the ruins. And in this moment, he doesn't really seem like the same kind of skeleton he portrayed himself as earlier. In fact, as the conversation goes on, he states that if he hadn't made that promise, we would probably be dead where we stand, which is horrifying and fantastic foreshadowing if you ever plan on going on a genocide run. I also love how we get an answer to Sans' omnipresence, which came off as a joke, but getting an answer to it is probably one of this game's most well-written moments, and it's just amazing to me. Making Sans seem like a real person recalling an actual experience, and it brings his feelings about you into consideration. But what happens if you decide to kill everyone? If you do go on a genocide run, at the very end, everything about Sans finally makes sense. He isn't lazy for laziness' sake, it's because of his apathy, his fatalism, his depression. He has been aware of you, or at least Flowey's, actions of resetting the timeline over and over, and the thought of his world being stuck like this forever absolutely broke him. Just look at the ending of the pacifist run where everyone is happy, but Sans just doesn't really say anything other than telling Papyrus what the sun is. How does he know what the sun is? Because he has seen it already. And it is not because Sans is Ness, okay? I'm serious. Alright, now let's just talk about his boss fight. I think his boss fight is straight up the best in this game. It is an absolutely tough-as-nails 22-round marathon, despite Sans being the statistically weakest enemy in the game. Now, how could it be so tough despite being the statistically least weakest enemy in the game? Well, for one, none of his attacks have iframes, making one attack become maybe 30 all at once. And all of his attacks only do 1 damage, but they also do damage over time. And he does die in 1 hit, but good luck with that. If the run itself hasn't made you already feel guilty enough, now it won't even make you feel like a good player, essentially making you the game's bitch. Even beating him isn't even satisfying because Sans is such a lovable character, but this is the final boss of the genocide run. This is your reward for being a terrible person. This fight is phenomenal, being my personal favorite boss fight in this game, and also making Sans my second favorite character in this game. Oh, by the way, he has a brother. So here is the other funny skeleton, but this one is a big old bundle of sunshine and rainbows, and probably the funniest of all this game's characters in my opinion. Papyrus is incredibly flamboyant and presents himself as confident, charismatic, and egotistical, but is very kind despite his brash exterior. He's often shown to be oblivious and naive, but not dumb, and is actually quite cunning in his attempts to have Undyne befriend the protagonist. He's also incredibly persistent, like when he waited outside of Undyne's house all night, waiting to be accepted into the Royal Guard. He absolutely loves puzzles and japes, and he is not at all shy to express it. From the incredibly incompetent, to the malfunctioning, to the extremely excessive. Let your puzzle pride fly high, my dude. And he also loves cooking spaghetti, which he acquired by Undyne teaching him to cook. As I mentioned earlier, Papyrus's humor is very innocent and childlike, which means that it's no wonder that most of the other characters in this game are protective of him, most notably Undyne for not letting him into the Royal Guard, and Sans because they're brothers, and Sans becomes even more depressed and doesn't appear anywhere else in the game if Papyrus is killed, besides the Judgment Hall. Despite everything though, Papyrus stays in high spirits. Even when he is decapitated and left as just a head, he still believes in the protagonist, which could come off as really suffocating when you become his first ever friend. He just becomes an ultra clingy guy, and his antics could come across as annoying, but more often than not, it will win you over. He's just a consistently nice and funny ass guy, always bringing good vibes to any situation, which makes him one of my personal favorites. Oh, also his boss fight is really good. At the beginning of his boss fight, his barrage of blue attacks turns your soul blue, turning the fight into a platforming fight. And while the platforming is relatively simple, it is a nice and welcome change to the gameplay, and during the fight, he constantly contemplates either being your friend or capturing you, with funny moments thrown in like the ability to flirt with him. There's also the special attack that he has, which he spends a large portion of the fight building up, only to have it be eaten by a dog. So he has to use a cool regular attack instead. A very normal, perfectly average, completely regular attack. This entire boss fight is just the perfect encapsulation of Papyrus as a character, and that's why this fight and this character are so good. Next up is Undyne. Undyne is one of this game's most transformative characters, starting off as an intimidating and foreboding character, then becoming an over-the-top maniacal knight who tries to kill you, until eventually becoming an over-the-top friendly frienderson who tries to kill you. She is absolutely passionate about absolutely everything she does and is interested in, like japes, the piano, collecting weaponry, and anime. And while ruthless and steadfast, she does try to be fair in combat by explaining how the green soul works. I also think it is really fun how the game progressively strips her of all dignified qualities and slowly turns her into a stereotypical anime character, to the point where she actually believes that anime is real. That's not to say that she is without her serious moments though, because during the date with her, she does actually have a very mature moment where she reflects on when Asgore taught her the value of pacifism, which is why she sees you as a wimpy loser with a big heart. And then she burns down her own home while cooking spaghetti. The neutral and pacifist run Undyne boss fights are both pretty fun as well. You get to use the green soul, which allows you to block incoming projectiles, namely Undyne spears, and once your soul turns red again, you are able to flee in an attempt to get to Hotland. The fight itself is fun, and I like the little tidbit of Undyne suplexing a boulder just because she felt like it. However, on the opposite end of the spectrum with the genocide route, you will learn that Undyne is way stronger than she has any right to be. having the most amount of determination of all monsters in the underground. After taking a fatal attack for the monster kid and on the cusps of death, she does a "sorry I failed everyone" speech, which also she was literally cut through diagonally. She becomes Undyne the Undying, becoming a true anime character, and possibly the hardest fight in the game, for me personally. The fight is basically just a roided up version of the normal Undyne fight. She still throws her spears at you, but there's way more now. And when I mean that, I mean there's absolute tons of them. And her normal attacks when you have the red soul are way more intense. I also really love the ending of this fight. While the ending of the Pacifist Run Undyne fight ends hilariously anticlimactically, in this fight, Undyne gives you a bone-chilling speech on how Asgore will absorb the 6 human souls to stop you, and how Alphys has already begun evacuating all the monsters into the True Lab, as she is just straight up melting. There is a ton to like about Undyne, and she is one of my personal favorite characters in the entire game, filled with lovable characters. And she likes women. I want to preface what I'm going to say here with this. This game is nearly flawless in my opinion. I know I was kinda exaggerating my praise for Dark Souls, but this time I absolutely mean the praise for this game. So with that being said, Alphys isn't as good of a character as the rest of the main cast. Now, I don't hate Alphys, not at all in fact, but I do feel like she is the one part of this game that needs improvement. But first, I need to share the reasons I don't hate her. A lot of people complain that she is basically like Navi from Ocarina of Time and Vi from Skyward Sword, and these people are wrong, for multiple reasons. One, Navi and Vi are really annoying and intrusive, with Navi's voice constantly ringing out, and in the original versions of Skyward Sword, Vi would just not shut up about dumb statistics that you would not care for, while Alphys only intrudes when she needs to, and the intrusions are either to actually give advice or are there for jokes. Second, Navi is present for all of Ocarina, and Vi is present for most of Skyward Sword. Meanwhile, Alphys really only has a big presence in Hotland and parts of the core, which is obviously much shorter. And finally, Alphys actually has a personality, unlike Navi and Vi, though Vi does show a bit of personality in brief instances. Alright, I debunked why Alphys isn't a bad character, so let's talk about her not being the best character now. Alphys is an introverted, anime-loving dweeb with low self-esteem and quite possibly depression. So like me. She is incredibly smart, being adept in programming, robotics, and mechanical engineering. She's really passionate about not only her work, but her interests, especially anime, manga, video games, shipping, and writing fanfiction. She's also the most simpy of all the characters, having mild crushes on Asgore and Toriel, while being completely head over heels with Undyne. She's also filled with tons of guilt over her failures and often procrastinates, and is pretty anxious and avoidant of others. Really, the only people who she actually talks to is her crush, her boss, her best friend, and the smiley trash bag. She also always tries to appeal to others so they can like her, which very often includes lying to others. Now, all this is fine on its own, but there is one thing that Alphys has done in the game that makes me think she is the weakest of this game's main cast. It's her decision to keep the amalgamates trapped. For context, before Undertale, Alphys experimented on recently deceased monsters by injecting their dust with human determination, in an attempt to revitalize them and break the barrier. Sounds fine, right? Haha, wrong! And after making the amalgamates, she hides them all from everybody, guilty over her failure. And this is my main issue here. Yeah, I understand that she feels guilt over their mutations, but she literally chose to keep them all in this dark, dingy, dank lab. And the fact that she completely shuts out almost everyone and hasn't told them doesn't make the most sense, as in my mind, more people would dislike her than if she told the truth. And what I think is worse is that once you go down into the True Lab and discover the amalgamates, she immediately frees them and undergoes a character arc where she becomes more honest and open. Like, huh? It just took you to completely change this decision that has her entire reputation and relationships on the line? She wouldn't talk to her skeleton friend, her boss, or even her own girlfriend about this? That just feels tacky. Alphys is not a bad character, but unlike the rest of the main cast that are all at least B+ to S tier characters, Alphys really just seems like a B- or a C+ character, you know? I still like her, but she needed more work to be a better character. Speaking of a better character, Mettaton is a very interesting character, given he is the only celebrity in the entire underground, and he is a seemingly homicidal maniac robot, and has the arrogance of your average celebrity, absolutely living for ratings and performing. He is the cousin of Napstablook and the game's dummies, who was given a robotic body by Alphys when he was still presumably a ghost, back when he had many dreams of being a performer. And now, he just spends his entire time being the dumbest goddamn robot imaginable. He does a lot in the underground as, again, their only celebrity, like game shows, cooking shows, broadcasting, theater, and even concerts. But he isn't a complete joke, because he is shown to be one of the least prejudiced characters in the game towards humans. In fact, he has no ill will towards humans, and just wants to entertain people. And he was just playing along with Alphys' plan to get the protagonist to like her, and potentially stop them from killing Asgore, which I forgot to mention is another reason why I don't like Alphys as much. And after the Mettaton EX fight, he is shown to have a very strong bond with his audience, and a big soft spot for not only his cousin Napstablook, but his friend Alphys. His antics are always completely ridiculous and downright hilarious, being the most absurd of all the characters in the game. Speaking of absurd, let's talk about Mettaton EX. At the end of the core, after being directed to by Alphys to flip the switch on his back, it becomes Mettaton EX, and yeah, this is a thing. I'm serious when I say when I first watched Jacksepticeye play this game when I was like 8 or 9, I straight up lost it due to how hilarious this introduction was. And even after 9 years, this moment is still probably within my top 10 funniest moments ever. This fight is just completely crazy in the best way possible. With the game taking on the form of a shooter now, there is also the ratings, which you need to get as high as possible if you want to try to get the pacifist ending. He has little mini Mettatons, he shoots lightning at you, he uses his legs for combat, he rewinds some of his attacks, and he even stops the fight midway through just to give you an essay question. This is insanely off the wall in the best way possible, and that is why I love this fight, and Mettaton as a character. Asgore is a very interesting beast. He's one of the game's main antagonists, and he rules over the underground. And he is also a kind and gentle goat man. Asgore is the most built-up character in this game, first being introduced by name through Toriel, and is treated as someone who will fucking murder you. Only for Papyrus and Undyne to say that he is a big ol' softie, and oddly enough, both are right. Asgore is a kind and quiet yet upbeat monster that enjoys gardening, tea, pies, singing, and murdering children. I will say though that Asgore doesn't really seem to want to fight anyone, and he seems to feel immense guilt from murdering humans. But as the king of the monsters, it is his duty to make sure that his people are happy. He is also one of this game's most tragic characters in a way, still living in his old home, stuck in the past, and wanting nothing more than to see his wife and child again. Because Toriel left long ago, and both Azrael and Kara have been dead for a long time. It is also implied through Gerson that Asgore isn't the sharpest tool in the shed, with Toriel being the one to actually run New Home when she was still married to him. Also, Asgore sucks at naming things. If I were to pinpoint some issues I have with Asgore, is that the true pacifist ending kinda paints him as a butt monkey. A character who is the butt of the demeaning joke, and I feel like a character like him deserved a lot better. I would also like to complain that he is really the only character to die in every ending except the true ending. Fight him, he dies. Spare him, he dies. Spare everyone in the game, he still dies. And yes, even in the genocide run, the ending where everyone dies, he dies. I'm sure you were all wondering about that one. I would also like to mention his boss fight. I really like how in the beginning he destroys your mercy button, forcing you to fight him, despite you probably not really wanting to depending on the route. He uses a lot of fire-based magic like his ex-wife, but they're far more complex since he is wanting to kill you, and they hit really hard. He also uses his trident in a similar attacking style as the orange and light blue beams in Hotland and the core. So you have to watch his eyes for that. Oh my god, it's a cool mechanic. While Asgore isn't really this game's best character, far from it, he's still a great one, and for a lesser game, he would probably be the best character in the game. But this ain't a lesser game now, is it? So, fun fact, the name you chose for yourself in the beginning of the game is not you, the protagonist. And it is actually this character right here, canonically known as Kara. Oh my god, I actually wrote this in the script. The jokes just write themselves, you know. Kara is the first human to ever fall into the underground, being the adopted child of both Toriel and Asgore, and being the adopted sibling of Asriel, and you really only ever encounter them in the genocide ending. They are described by Asriel in the True Passive Ascending as misanthropic and not really the greatest person. And it is implied that they were suicidal, and through the tapes Alphys found, we can see that they are very mischievous, intelligent, secretive, and persuasive. And in the genocide ending, they really seem to be polite, formal, very blunt, and criticizing. Yet, even with all of this, Kara is probably this game's most ambiguous character with actual story relevance. Sorry, Gaster. They have an enigmatic backstory and motivation that cannot be pinpointed in any singular run, and are basically a huge anomaly due to their complexity yet ambiguity. And they serve a great parallel to the player. Honestly, Kara is just a really cool character, and one of the few times I think a game has ever really pulled off an enigmatic character like this. Alright, now I'm including both Flowey and Asriel both within this section because while they are completely different in terms of personality, it is still technically the same character. Confused? Well, allow me to explain. Before Asriel's death, he was a docile, loving, gentle, and compassionate child, as he helped the injured Kara, but was also somewhat naive and really trusting due to him continuing to go along with Kara's plan of breaking the barrier to free monsterkind. After Kara died and Asriel absorbed their soul, Asriel left the underground and went to lay down Kara on a bed of golden flowers, and when he was being attacked by humans, he didn't fight back and just grabbed Kara and went home, dying as soon as he returned. Years later, Alphys was experimenting with determination and injected some into a flower, and then Flowey happened. Flowey lacked a soul and emotions, but retained Asriel's memories and aspects of Asriel's personality. When he was finally revived, he was scared since he was a flower, crying out for his parents. And while Asgore found him, he couldn't really elicit any emotional response from Flowey, and neither could Toriel whenever he went to her. He eventually grew completely despondent and attempted to kill himself, but being right in front of death's door, he found out that he had the ability to save, due to getting a bit of determination in his system. Since he found out he could save, he decided to experiment with everyone's lives, knowing that there was a safety net for him, being the ability to reload his saves, and eventually, he grew completely numb to it all and adopted the mantra he lives by. In this world, it's kill or be killed. He embodies the most unique aspect of Undertale compared to most other games, the fact that it can remember your saves. A lot of games see reloading your saves as a sort of safety net for you.
I actually advise the Jarl on political matters. My input is invaluable, of course, but this is all probably a bit over your head.
Be careful! But since Flowey has that exact same power, he knows what you did when you either reload your save or reset, and revels in the mistakes and bad choices you made. Remember how I said that Kara paralleled the player in a lot of ways? Well, Flowey does that to a far bigger degree, acting like a person who has played a game over and over and over again, remembering every outcome, every encounter, every bit of dialogue, and every single minute detail. This is most apparent in the end of the neutral run, where he kills Asgore, assuming you spare him, takes the 6 human souls, deletes your save file, and becomes one of this game's best bosses. Alright, let's talk about Omega Flowey now. He fucks with absolutely everything. The graphical style swaps from 16-bit to this absolute abomination of plant tissue, human flesh, and machine parts. The RPG elements are completely thrown into the wood chipper, and the fourth wall has been completely obliterated. Flowey wastes absolutely no time throwing everything against you in an attempt to kill you. The only hope you have is to hold out until the minigames where the human souls are liberated. You're attacked with supercharged versions of the weapons you find throughout the game during these minigames, basically telling you that they all belong to the previous 6 humans, and once you hit the act button, they will be turned into healing items. It is also quite nice of the game to provide you with checkpoints, and once all the human souls are freed, you now have the upper hand against Flowey, and even after a complete fake out, you still come out victorious. And when you do finally beat him, it is one of the most satisfying moments in this entire game. While the genocide route ends with Sans and the neutral route ends with Flowey, the pacifist route ends with Asriel. After doing absolutely everything in your power to make absolutely everybody happy, Asriel makes one last stand to completely destroy the timeline and reset it. But his emotional barriers are broken throughout this fight. Speaking of, this fight is really something to behold, being an absolutely stunning final boss. While his attacks are tough to dodge and pack a pretty significant punch, Asriel is actually one of the game's easier fights. First, the act menu gives you the options of Hope and Dream. Hope basically reduces damage, while Dream gives you recovery items, so it isn't too tough to survive his attacks. The second reason is that you cannot lose it, as the soul refuses to break, meaning you only go back 3 rounds since the one you got the furthest in. And while that does remove some tension from the fight, this fight isn't the type of fight for that to even be the case, since it isn't the type of fight to make you grit your teeth like some of the others. Rather, the fight will make you absolutely sob uncontrollably. While it isn't the best as a fight, it's an absolutely incredible moment. Kinda like the big bosses in the different Souls games like Rykard in Elden Ring and the Divine Dragon from Sekiro. Throughout the fight, he constantly teases you about having to start all over again, and the emotional intensity ramps up when he becomes the god of hyper-death, and you have to save your friends' souls. It is a damn fantastic way to send off an incredible game. Continuing on, I love how the tables turn from you hating Asriel to feeling bad for hating him because, oh my god, I just want to hug this poor little guy. Asriel doesn't try to excuse himself or shy away from any of the terrible things he has done as Flowey either, but there is definitely a ton of sympathy to be given to a kid who ended up becoming a player in his own world rather than an actual person in it. And it hurts even more when you end up getting close to him, and in just a little while, he will end up going back to being Flowey. Not nearly as malicious as before, but Asriel is really the only character in this game to not get a particularly happy ending. But despite that, he is easily one of the most profound characters I have ever seen in a game in many different ways. He is also a pretty deep character with a very powerful and emotional story, which leads me to give him my coveted best character in Undertale. And that is all of the game's characters. All in all, Undertale, in my opinion, has one of the best cast of characters in any video game I've ever played, and even the worst character is still pretty good. I am jealous I will never be able to write anything as good as this game. But we still have quite a bit more to talk about, so let's talk about my 3 personal favorite moments in this game for a bit. The endings of all 3 routes of Undertale. Hey, this is mid-editing Krimsin here. So, originally, I was going to be talking about all 3 endings of Undertale, but that would have bloated this video to shit more than it probably already is. And I've been working on this video for 2 months, and I just want to start working on the next video. So instead, I'm only going to be talking about the genocide run, the True Lab and the events leading up to it, and the pacifist ending. That's all I'm going to be talking about. I would like to mention one more thing. You may have actually noticed that the genocide run footage kind of looks different. It's because it's not mine. So, you see, I finished recording the genocide run footage. I split it up into 2 parts, but the second part looked like this. I'm not gonna show this. Sometimes my footage just looks like that when I record on a Nintendo Switch. I don't know what the issue is, and I've already played through the genocide run twice for this very video. And unlike a certain someone, I'd actually like to give credit. So I would like to give credit real quick. The footage comes courtesy from Full Gameplays on YouTube. If you want a good genocide run playthrough, just watch that. Any genocide run footage doesn't belong to me, it belongs to them. Alright, back to the video. Next up we have the genocide and... No, I'm out. So, first of all, congratulations! Everyone is dead! Toriel is dead, Papyrus is dead, Undyne is dead, and Metaton are dead. Now, You made it to New Home! Yay! Congratulations! What awaits you here? Oh, it's Flowey. So when you actually get to New Home in the neutral run, a bunch of monsters actually appear and tell you an abridged version of the story of the Dreamer family. In this ending though, Flowey appears and tells you completely different stuff. He first tells you that today would be fun, and then he begins to talk to you about what happened when he woke up as a flower, and that before he died, he discovered his ability to save and how he experimented with everyone's lives. And he even breaks the fourth wall. He then questions how you are even here because Flowey still believes you are Kara, because in this route, he actually does believe you're Kara. And he talks about how he just wants to be with you again. But then he's completely scared off because you are a freak who kills everybody, and you should feel bad about yourself. Then Sans sees you again at the Hall of Judgment. He is not here to judge you anymore. He warns you that stepping any closer will result in a bad time. And when you do, he apologizes for breaking his promise tutorial, and you fight him. In this fight, Sans goes on about how a bunch of timelines have started and then stopped, jumped left and right, and how he has completely given up. He even states that whoever is doing what they are doing seems unhappy and just needs some good food, a few bad laughs, and friendship. But nothing will quell this anomaly that took over you. After 23 rounds of sheer intensity, Sans tries to hold you at a standstill, making sure that you will never attack him back. But he gets too tired, and that was his downfall. He finally gets hit. He gets up, warns you one last time, and sees Papyrus one last time before he dies. After you arrive, Asgore mentions that he just encountered a crying flower, only for you to instantly kill him. Flowey then finishes off Asgore and begs you not to kill him, putting on Asriel's face, but it's just you now. As opposed to the pacifist ending, which I will talk about soon, which is more cheery and everyone is happy, this ending is dark and almost completely lonely, with just you and your sins crawling on your back. But there is one more person here. Kara appears right in front of you, with this horrifically high-pitched melody and sound similar to a beating heart playing in the background. Kara then explains to you that your determination is the reason they came back from the grave, and now they can finish their goal, and all that is left to do is to erase the world. Now, you do have the choice of what to do here, erase or do not. If you do go through with it, Kara calls you a great partner, followed by Kara's eyes becoming hollow as Kara then kills you, accepting you as their partner, as the world is erased. However, though, if you do not go full evil, oh my god, it's fucking over, thank god. When I first played through to this ending absolutely traumatized me. I have gotten over a lot of what I saw in this ending, but it still makes my skin crawl whenever I think about that image. This is a beautiful ending, and is probably one of my favorite evil endings in any video game, and it cements the fact that if you treat this game like you would any other role-playing game, you're gonna have a bad time, one way or another. After going on a date with Alphys where wacky hijinks ensues, find a note in her lab that basically says, don't find me, I'm gonna be going down here to confirm my mistakes. So you obviously follow her into the elevator. And now, we're about to enter my favorite stretch of this game. The True Lab is my favorite stretch of this fantastic game. It has basically almost everything I love about this game, and I think it might just be one of my personal favorite video game levels. The aesthetics of this place look so industrial and abandoned, like you just entered a hospital that is only full of souls that just want peace. Which you kinda did, but you already know that. While down here, you find logs that detail Alphys' experiments with souls and determination to allow monsters' souls to persist after death. And throughout the True Lab, the protagonist encounters the amalgamates we actually talked about earlier. And instead of fighting them, like games would normally have you do with mutant abominations, you treat them with kindness and pacifism in order for you to try to escape. Throughout the lab, they also encounter several golden flowers, and deeper within, VHS tapes that Alphys found. These tapes kinda give a bit of more of an extensive look into the night Azrael and Kara died. After collecting all the keys to restore the power, Alphys arrives to explain herself, and she resolves to return the amalgamates home, and thanks you for her support. Absolutely everything that I love about Undertale, and probably everything you love about Undertale, is all in the True Lab. It is all in this one section of the game. And that is why I do think that this is probably my favorite part of the game. It's simply just phenomenal. That's really the only word I have for it. It's just phenomenal. As you leave the True Lab, you get a call from someone you don't recognize telling you everything has fallen into place and that they will see you again soon. Alrighty, while the genocide run was absolutely genius, I am personally a sucker for more uplifting endings, and while sad and dour endings can really work for me, I prefer happier endings for everyone. And that is exactly what the true pacifist ending is for me. At the barrier before you confront Asgore, again, Toriel arrives and suspends the fight before it could even begin, and reprimands Asgore for his actions. Shortly after, Undyne and then Alphys and then Papyrus and finally Sans arrive. They all got to have a chat for a little bit, and it's pretty nice. Alphys then questions how she got here before Papyrus, and Papyrus says a tiny flower helped him. Oh, god damn it! Yeah, Flowey arrives and is ready to tear you away from your happy ending, holding your friends hostage as he absorbed the 6 human souls. He offers the protagonist a chance to face him, and then promptly denies it, planning to keep them trapped forever, even if it means killing you 1,000,000 times. Before he could, Toriel helps block his attack, followed by Sans and Papyrus, Undyne, Alphys, and Asgore. They believe you can beat Flowey, and then everyone joins in, all believing you, and oh my god, it's so great! But Flowey then tells us how we played right into his hands, and how he can now absorb the souls of everyone. Then, Flowey has regained his true form as Azrael Dreamer. I already talked about this fight a little bit earlier, but I still want to state how great this fight truly is. Halfway through this fight, Azrael becomes the god of hyper-death and prevents you from doing anything except struggling. You cannot save anymore, and the timeline is collapsing. But you can save something else. The act menu then turns into save as you save your friends' souls one by one, as they have become lost when Flowey absorbed their souls. And finally, after saving everyone, there's one more person to save. This moment is truly something else for me. I think I said earlier that this moment doesn't make me cry as much as the ending, but after a little bit of retrospection, I think this moment has actually made me cry more. In fact, I think this is actually the moment that actually gets me every single time. Seeing Azrael break down as he realizes he cannot win, saying how much he truly cares for Kara and how lonely he is, like, oh my god! I would just like to mention real quick that Undertale did not win Best Independent Game, or even get nominated for Best Score/Soundtrack, or even Best Narrative. Really? This game didn't even get nominated for Best Narrative? Rocket League won Best Independent Game, and Her Story won Best Narrative?
What a sick joke!
Just want to say that these are bullshit. Okay, now the Game of the Year nominations for 2015 look like this. Anyways, after saving Azrael, he apologizes to you, and he finally acknowledges that you are not actually Kara, and he learns that your name is actually Frisk. He tells Frisk that he can feel the emotions, desires, and love of all the monsters, and chooses to use his remaining power to destroy the barrier. Azrael tells us he returned the souls, and soon after, he will turn back into Flowey. The only sour point I have for this ending is that Azrael will have to turn back to Flowey. He gets absolutely nothing, and it absolutely breaks me. I will say though, from a critical perspective, I think that Azrael going back to Flowey was the right call because that would have probably soured the ending. But me personally, I would have preferred it if he lived. And finally, you say goodbye to Azrael. Frisk then wakes up, and everyone is relieved to see that you're okay. But I don't remember what happened after Flowey appeared. Yay! Fuck off, story. Give me my 100% happy ending, please. I beg of you. Anyways, you can look around the underground and you can talk to everyone about now being free. And you can even see the amalgamates with their families. It's nice. But if you return to the first room, you will see Azrael. He tells you he can't leave as he doesn't want to break everyone's hearts again. If you keep him company, he asks why you went to Mount Ebott, and asks if it was for an unhappy reason. He does talk a bit more about Kara, and a little bit about their motivations, and tells Frisk that they are different from Kara, and how Frisk is the friend Azrael truly needed, and always wanted. He then talks about how Kara brought their body back to the village, but Azrael refused to fight, since they both had control of Azrael's body at that moment. You know, the moment when Azrael absorbed Kara's soul. Anyway, he reflects a bit more and tells Frisk that if they ever see Azrael as Flowey again, to remember them as Azrael, and tells Frisk, don't kill and don't be killed. And finally, once you finish saying goodbye, Frisk and everyone watch the sunset on Mount Ebbot's cliff, and talk about the future. Asgore proposes Frisk to be the monster's ambassador, and Papyrus leaves to make a good first impression. Then Sans leaves to make sure Papyrus doesn't get into any trouble, followed by Undyne, then Alphys, and then Asgore, leaving you and Toriel. Toriel asks what you will do now, and you can either leave or stay with her. If you choose to stay, she says that if that was the case earlier, this journey wouldn't have even happened. And then the two leave. And then the game's over after a cute little credit roll showing where everyone is now. So, yeah, that was the True Pacifist run. At the end of this, you get a nice little bullet-held minigame with backer credits, and you get a nice post-credit scene. Hey everybody! So it's been a while! Sorry about this video taking so long. I've been just so busy with work, school, and theater and all that jazz. And I got pretty burned out from making that big Dark Souls video last year. Which, by the way, thank you for nearly 100,000 views on that video. That 100% exceeded my expectations. I did not even expect this video to even do that good. But, thank you so much for watching it, especially given how that video is complete garbage compared to this one. I do have a few things to say about that video real quick before I actually move on to a few other things I wanted to say. Upon further reflection of Dark Souls 1, I don't really think it's as good as I said it was anymore. It still is a phenomenal game, but the gameplay has definitely aged, and a good chunk of the bosses and several areas are not that great. So now I wouldn't say it's quite in my top 25 favorite games anymore. I'd actually say that Sekiro, because I replayed it recently, is easily in that top 25. By the way, here's my top 25 favorite games of all time. If you don't agree with these opinions, go kick rocks. This is just my opinions.
That's just my opinion. Go ahead and cancel me. I don't care.
I did exaggerate my opinion a bit there, but here, I fully mean everything I say. I do truly believe that Undertale is a nearly flawless game, and I love it so much. I think I would say it's probably in my top 10 favorite games of all time, and I would go even further to say that it's one of the best games from 2015. I have two other things I would like to mention regarding this channel. I will begin making shorter, quicker reviews on the channel regularly from here on for new things I release, be it games or movies. The first game I will review will probably be Monster Hunter Wilds, and the first movie I will review will likely be Mickey 17. I don't know, I might bundle movie reviews together depending on how much I have to say about a specific movie. I don't know. We'll see. Also, I might make some more Let's Play gameplay videos. That really depends on if you guys would want something like that. I mean, I want to make videos like that. I kind of miss making videos like that. But yeah, I feel fresh and I am finally ready to dive back into making my next video. A video that I've been wanting to make for years now. Anyways, that's all for now. Goodbye everybody, stay safe and stay determined.
Master Willem, I've come to bid you farewell.
Oh, I know. You think now to betray me.
No, but you will never listen. I tell you, I will not forget our adage.
We are born of the blood, made men by the blood, undone by the blood. Our eyes are yet to open.
Fear the old blood. I must take my leave.